What's going on, gamers? So remember back in February when we talked about this thing called review season? It's that time of the year when you're playing games non-stop and you're throwing all societal obligations right out the window. Well, we thought we defeated that monster, but guess again, it's back and it's brought some backup. There are a ton of great co-op games to play right now, and even more releasing over the next couple months, so before you smash that piggy bank, let us fill you in on all the co-op games that came out last month, what co-op games are coming out in the next months, and any co-op news in between. That's right, it's the Co-op Monthly for August. Let's get started.
Gabe is right, we are officially in the thick of it, just like the Backyardigans were in 04, so let's just get going. And what better place to start than with Baldur's Gate 3? If you haven't heard of the smashing success of Baldur's Gate 3, then you might need to turn in your gamer card because it's kind of a big deal. Sitting at a 96 on OpenCritic makes it one of the highest reviewed games of the OpenCritic era, and its 96% overwhelmingly positive player rating with 200,000 plus votes is basically unheard of. It's been praised for its branching story paths, deep RPG elements, and crazy attention to detail. Gabe, Jake, and I are like 25 plus hours into our co-op campaign and have nothing but praise to give it. You can check out our impressions for more or our how-to to help make sure you get your campaign set up correctly. Either way, keep in mind this is coming to the PS5 in the next 2 days on September 6th. And hopefully it'll come to Xbox systems pretty soon too. Quick cut to a news segment. Baldur's Gate 3 will be coming to Xbox consoles sometime this year after Uncle Phil finally let up on the Series S stipulation, meaning it will come to both consoles but with local split screen, not for the Series S and only for the Series X. 30XX finally came out of early access after 2 years, and it's looking like the modern Mega Man experience we all hoped it would be. An 85 on OpenCritic and a 91% very positive from Steam users is definitely a win for this small indie title. For the uninitiated, this is Mega Man, but with a modern coat of paint, roguelike levels, and online or local 2-player co-op. You can play it on PC and Switch, and if you do, let us know what you think in the comments because we're probably not going to be able to get to this one ourselves. Okay, let's take a break from the good vibes and talk about Atlas Fallen. Yeah, this one did not hit so well. It's got a 68 on OpenCritic and a mixed 62 positive on Steam. We watched Austin's review over at SkillUp's channel, and he talked pretty negatively, highlighting camera issues, bad voice acting, short length, and disappointing Metroidvania elements. Several reviewers mentioned how it could be more fun in co-op, with IGN especially highlighting that it could be fun with a friend, but even so, it's probably a firm wait for a sale or Game Pass territory. Sengoku Dynasty released into early access this month to little fanfare with no critic reviews to speak of, but a 70% positive user rating on Steam. You might remember this one as a fairly niche survival title set in feudal Japan with online co-op. It'll be in early access for about a year, so if it garners more positive buzz, we'll be sure to mention it in next year's August monthly. Hammerwatch II is a title that has made its way into our comments more than once, with the original title obviously garnering some love when it was released a decade ago. Unfortunately, the sequel hasn't fared so well with a surprisingly low 64% mixed user rating on Steam. That's not so good. Scrolling through the comments just briefly, this is not a scientific study, it sounds like the multiplayer function is just not working at launch, so if you plan on playing this with your friends, you might want to check back later after a few patches and maybe that review score will start to go up. Moving Out 2, the sequel to the Overcooked-like Moving Out, came straight to PlayStation Plus when it released on the 15th, so I invited some people over and we played it for a little over 2 hours. Right now, it's a pretty impressive 82 on OpenCritic, and I definitely agree with that score. It's got the usual frantic fun these chaotic co-op titles bring, but is definitely one of the more polished and complete packages you can find. Crossplay, local and online co-op, and the best assist and accessibility offers that I've seen in this genre. If you like these games, then I'd pick up Moving Out 2, but if you don't, it's not necessarily going to convince you. And hey, if you haven't played one of these before, Moving Out 2 is a great option, especially on PlayStation Plus Extra. Wayfinder released into early access, and boy did it release poorly. Wait times due to server issues and just a blatant lack of planning mean that you had to wait upwards of like 2 to 3 plus hours to get in. That is wild. I also watched Austin's review for this on SkillUp's channel, and he talked about the server woes, but has still managed to play a good bit in his review. The vibes are that this has a lot of potential, but still needs some time to get into a great state. Not super surprising for a game of this ilk, even if it is a light version of an MMO. You usually see this when these games launch, but hey, if you want a long-term co-op game, Wayfinder may eventually be it. Finishing out the month was Trine 5, coming out on the final day of August. The review scores could be subject to change, but we're sitting at a 78, and I think that that's probably not going to move much, because that sounds exactly right to us. Gabe and I did get to play early. In fact, we've played about half of the game already. The reviewers are saying what we're feeling. This is more of Trine, and if you like that, then come on in. If you don't like that, well, it's not going to change your mind. But if you've always been interested in the series, this is a good hopping on point too.
The review season train continues on to September with a decent load of games to look forward to. The first release of the month is Enchanted Portals, releasing on all platforms on September 5th. This is that Cuphead-like we've mentioned here on the monthly more than a couple times. Much like Cuphead, it features 2-player local co-op, and I assume, like Cuphead, it's gonna be pretty tough even in co-op. Actually, maybe even more so in co-op. Hopefully Enchanted Portals can find a good balance and kick off the new Cuphead-like subgenre on the right foot. Next up is Faefarm, which is releasing on PC and Switch on September 8th. I won't blame you if you don't remember this one from that one Farming Games Direct, Nintendo Direct, but yeah, it's finally here. It's a 4-player online co-op farming sim with some RPG elements. It's cute, it's cozy, and probably a great way to get ready for fall, so there you go. We'll get to Gamescom in a bit, but I want to shout out one quick release that we got from the show, and that is from Synced, which is a free-to-play sci-fi shooter you can play in 3-player co-op online. The PC version will be out on September 8th, with the console versions to follow. Honestly, for a free-to-play title, this looks kinda cool. There's 4 different classes, and not just a PvE mode, but also a PvP mode. If your wallet is hurting from all these games, then Synced just might be what you need. Mythforce is up next as it's finally leaving early access and releasing in full on every platform on September 12th. This is a 4-player online co-op roguelike with a really cool Saturday morning cartoon look. We checked this one out ourselves as part of our Steam Nightfest coverage and came away pretty impressed with everything it was trying to do, especially in the art department, of course. Classes and combat weren't too shabby either, but honestly we had very little time with the demo, so hopefully we can check out the final product in just a couple weeks. Boti Byteland Overclocked is a game we've mentioned plenty of times in the monthly and is finally releasing on PC come September 15th. This is a 2-player local and online platformer set in a fun and wacky digital world. You can play the whole campaign together, and it features a nice drop-in, drop-out co-op system. There's a lot of big games releasing this month and next month, so even if you don't get to Boti, make sure you add it to your wishlist so you can hop in when you're looking for that nice indie palate cleanser. Easily the biggest September release if you don't count Starfield, Baldur's Gate 3 coming to PlayStation, or Mortal Kombat 1. Okay, so the 4th biggest release is PayDay 3 coming on September 21st. This is the long-awaited return to the classic co-op heist franchise that so many of us loved. The bros got their hands on it briefly during a very short beta, and we thought it was fun, but we only got to see 1 level, so we didn't really see much of the game. We're looking forward to seeing more of it soon, so look forward to some PayDay 3 streams right around release. Now, I don't want to come off mean with this, but you know what would be really freaking nice? If people stopped taking the Avatar The Last Airbender IP and coming up with some truly garbage material. Okay, so rant aside, Avatar The Last Airbender Quest for Balance is releasing on September 22nd on every platform. It'll feature 2-player local and online co-op as you play through pretty much the entirety of the show. Which on paper sounds kinda cool, but I don't know man, this just ain't it. At best, maybe it can be a fun romp through the show, but for one of my favorite IPs ever, I expect a lot more than this. If Faefarm didn't have enough horse girl energy for you, then maybe you should take a look at My Time at Sandrock, which is leaving early access and releasing on every platform on September 26th. You know the deal by now, this is another farming sim, but this one comes with a cowboy/frontier look and it has some light RPG mechanics. It also features 4-player online co-op, and a little side note here, the other game in this series, My Time at Portia, did pretty well for itself, so if you're into these kinds of games, then Sandrock might be worth checking out. Last 2 games here, and they're both releasing on September 28th. The first one is Wildmender. This is a 4-player online co-op survival game that we ourselves got to check out during Steam Nets Fest. Co-op survival games are a dime a dozen these days, but Wildmender puts its own twist on the genre. Rather than selfishly minding the environment, Wildmender is all about bringing life back to your surroundings. It was a little rough around the edges when we demoed it, but it also surprised us in a couple ways. Check it out in a couple weeks or wishlist it for later. You know what? I lied about the biggest release of September, and I apologize. It's not Starfield, it's not Mortal Kombat or PayDay 3, it's Pizza Possum, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 2-player local co-op game that I'm finding a little hard to explain easily. Basically, it's like Goose Game, but instead you're playing as a hungry possum and his stylish raccoon sidekick. It's a ton of fun, and if you don't believe us, go watch our 15-minute gameplay video to see for yourself. Pizza Possum is releasing on all platforms on September 28th.
We've got a ton of news from Gamescom this month, so expect some pretty chunky news blocks. It was mostly about new and upcoming games, but first let's talk about the news updates that we got on existing titles. I've mentioned before that you should probably just wait until Warhammer Darktide comes to Xbox to hop in, and that day was officially announced at Gamescom. It's coming to the gangrene consoles on October 4th, and yes, it will be available on Game Pass. If I'm being honest, I was really disappointed at the timing of this release. October is entirely booked out for us, and I really wanted to hop back into this one and see if on console it felt better after all these updates. The gameplay here has always been top notch, but the surrounding economy and content was pretty much garbage. The team at Fat Shark have released several updates over the past year since it released that hopefully add up to a more filled out experience. If you happen to hop back in soon, let me know what you think so we can know if we should hop back in. Fat Shark and the Warhammer franchise have kept themselves pretty busy as of late. Expect us to be talking about those Warhammer previews later, but for now we're actually going to be talking about Vermintide 2. It got a trailer for a new class in the Necromancer 5 years after launch. That is pretty freaking cool. This was the precursor to Darktide and has consistently been loved by its players, unlike Darktide. We've always wished we had the time to check this out, but we're a little late to the party, so shout out to all of you who have even more reason to keep playing it yourselves. Alright, I'm gonna keep rolling here with a quick break from Gamescom to talk about all the news, previews, and release dates we got for upcoming games, and then I'll hand it off to Gabe to cover what we heard out of Gamescom, because it is a lot. First, let's cover some dates. Devolver Digital did a cheeky Devolver delayed showcase in the style of a Nintendo Direct. Sidebar, wouldn't it be awesome to be the people voicing a Nintendo Direct? They just seem so happy all the time. Anyways, during that Direct we got confirmation Wizard with a Gun is in fact coming out this year, and just yesterday, as of the time of recording this whole thing, it got a date revealed as October 17th, the same day as Sonic coming out, and only 3 days before Mario coming out. This is the emoji to describe how I feel about zero co-op games deciding to claim November and everything coming out in October instead. But Wizard with a Gun has always impressed us with all of its trailers and gameplay, so we will do our best to fit it in the schedule anyways. The developers on Hyper Light Breaker checked in with us a little over a week ago to say that we unfortunately will not be getting Hyper Light Breaker's early access this year, as it has been delayed to the first part of 2024. Totally fine with me. I've always loved the look of this title since I first saw it, but I would also love to give it more time if it comes out in that first quarter of 2024. Next up, I want to talk about RoboQuest, a fast-paced FPS roguelite with online co-op. It looks like a ton of fun. I've heard some good buzz out of it, and it's been in early access for a while now, like we're talking 3 years. It is coming into 1.0 this fall, no firm date, but hopefully in the next month or two, to PC and Xbox. So go add it to your wishlist on Steam so you know the day that it comes out. One more quick trailer and date that I want to mention was for Destiny 2's The Final Shape. The trailer was just a cinematic, get pumped piece for the final chapter of the long-running series. Right now, I know there's some beef between the players and the devs. I don't know what for because it's a lot to keep up with. As an on and off again Destiny player, I'm just hoping they land the plane with this last hurrah because when Destiny is firing on all cylinders, it can be pretty special. Okay, let's knock out some previews, starting with Palia. IGN put together a preview where they described this cozy game as a combo of World of Warcraft and Animal Crossing. A lot of praise specifically for how the game emphasizes the multiplayer aspects. Check out the video yourself to learn more. This next preview might come as a surprise to you coming from us because it's the Among Us category of social deception, but hey, we here at the Co-op Bros like to branch out occasionally. IGN previewed this one as well and talked about how impressed they were with the title combining those fun, like whodunit moments of Among Us with the horror of a Dead by Daylight monster chasing you down. This has Gabe written all over it, but I'd be happy to oblige him with a few sessions on this. Check out the IGN video if this looks interesting to you, and just a heads up, it is coming out in just the next few weeks on September 14th, perfectly timed for spooky season. Lords of the Fallen has slowly transformed from a meme for an absolutely terrible string of decisions on the title's name into a legitimately intriguing and exciting title. That hype has started to reach maximum levels, with several outlets getting the chance to go hands-on with the game and universally coming out positive on the other side. Lots of talk about how gorgeous the world is thanks to the Unreal Engine 5, but also how impressive that dual world mechanic really is. If you want to hear more about it, we suggest Skill Ups or Fextra Lives for more details. They've got previews up on their channels, and expect us to cover this come launch on the 13th of October. We're having a bit of a 2D co-op platformer renaissance this year, with Disney Illusion Island, Sonic Superstars, and Mario Wonder coming out later. Let's talk about those two unreleased titles here. First with Sonic, we got a release date during Gamescom for October 17th, but we also got some previews from a few outlets that focus on the co-op. IGN's preview praised the co-op for adding a lot of fun to the formula, while GameXplain's preview confirmed our fears of co-op not really working in the Sonic formula. They both mentioned a key feature that when one player falls behind, they can just press a button to catch up automatically, which makes sense, but the GameXplain previewer said that happened way too often. We'll have to see for ourselves if that's the case come release. I'm thinking I'm going to bring some friends over to put them through that themselves. Hopefully it works out and defies the odds. I would love to see that. Now, talking about a game working, my dudes, Mario is putting in the work in his upcoming adventure, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. The Direct really sold me that this is the future of 2D Mario adventures, and I am 100% here for it. The power-ups look great. I mean, elephants, come on. Wonder flower variations in every level look spectacular. We're getting this new, badge mod system that totally changes how you play each level. This is the Mario glow-up we all wanted. As for co-op, we're getting our traditional 4-player local co-op. You'll have to see it. There are some nice tweaks here to the system, like how it used to be bubbles when you would die, and you'd have to go get the bubble, and that wasn't always great. Now you change into a ghost when you die, and you can control where it goes, and then the other person hits the ghost, and you're back. I like that a lot. Also, Yoshi and Nabbit are like the easy mode that you've always wanted for your younger siblings, where they just can't die, and that's great. Getting weird though with the online co-op, so you can sort of play online with your friends, but also you're not really playing together. You can play in the same level at the same time, but you're not going to affect each other's worlds outside of reviving each other. So like for instance, you're playing in a level and you stomp on a Goomba, in your friend's game, that Goomba's still gonna be there. You're just kind of both in the same level at the same time. You can also do this thing where you compete with each other and you're all on the same level and you race to the end. That looks fun, obviously competitive, not co-op. Plus you can just turn on the online when playing solo, and Mario becomes a strand game where you can put down these Mario wooden statues where they can revive other people, and if someone does revive through your statue, you get points. I don't know, it's wild. We also got previews for this, and all of them were just 100% glowing. I watched GameSpots, it was very good, and it has me even more hyped than I once thought possible. So if you're looking for even more Super Mario Bros. Wonder hype, go watch that video. And yeah, I don't want to keep rambling here. All I gotta say, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, it's gonna be a banger.
Coming in here really quick to talk about hyenas. You guys should know by now that I will try any and all PvEVP/extraction games available, because I just find this emerging genre really interesting. And yeah, it's not pure co-op, but you can still find some of the best parts about co-op games in these titles, from team composition, communication, and working as a team. And so far, Hyenas is actually doing a lot of that pretty well. I got to play a couple hours of the closed beta and I had a good time with it. Mostly played the support gamer kid character, healing my teammates with my cool little drone guy. I came away impressed with its mix of PvEvP meets heist game meets anti-gravity shooter. We don't know much about when this will come out or what the pricing will be, but consider me interested in hyenas, which is something I didn't expect to say. Okay, so let's get into the real Gamescom news, starting with an update for the Lords of the Rings Return to Moria game, which finally got a release date for October 24th. Interesting enough, that release date is only for PC and PS5. The game will launch separately for Xbox consoles early next year. We also got a new gameplay trailer showing us all the new survival and building gameplay, and I had some thoughts on it. On the one hand, I'm impressed with all the crafting and building systems. It definitely looks like a legit survival game. On the other hand though, I wasn't loving how the game looks, just feels a bit old, but maybe that's not the point. I do think 8-player co-op would be pretty awesome with this, and thankfully we don't have to wait too long to see it in action. Now, this Gamescom update is a little bittersweet. Nightingale got an official release date, which is great, but it's no longer coming out this year and instead launching onto early access on February 22nd of next year. I'm a little bummed as I was still holding out hope, slim as it was, that we could still see it sometime this year, but at least now we have a great game to look forward to, and hopefully February of next year isn't as busy as it's been the past 2 years, fingers crossed. On to all the previews we got as part of the show, and we got some more news on PayDay 3. One part of it is that we'll be getting major content updates for 18 months post-release. Considering how PayDay 2 was heavily supported, that bodes very well for this game. The other part of the news is a lot weirder. PayDay 3 will have a mission that involves Ice-T in some fashion. I don't know if he's in the game or just narrating the mission. Apparently he's been a huge fan of PayDay, so this is kind of a big deal for him, guys. From one half of the co-op bros, congrats Ice-T, we're happy for you on this one. Warhammer 40k Space Marines 2 got some great previews as part of Gamescom. We finally got to see the game in action and we learned a lot. First of all, this game is being developed by the makers of World War Z. This isn't new information per se, but now that we're seeing the game in action, it really shows off their amazing horde tech. This all really comes together when you see a Marine rush into a swarm of Tyranids and slice them with their chainsword in glorious fashion. It seems like the game will harken back to some classic 2000 video games before looter shooters and adding RPG mechanics to like everything. In co-op, that seems like a perfect choice to me. While the game looked amazing though, it seems unlikely to release this year as it probably needs a little bit more time to cook. Xbox had a big presence at Gamescom showing off their shiny new toy, Starfield, but they also made room for a 33-player co-op game you might have heard of. You'll remember 33 Immortals from Summer Game Fest, and we learned a bit more about it through this Gamescom interview. One of the things we learned is that they're calling this a pick up and raid kind of game with some instant matchmaking. That's cool because it'll make it a lot easier to get to that titular 33 player count. Another interesting tidbit is how player roles are dictated by their weapon and that there's 4 different roles: tank, support, range, and melee. They talked about a bunch of other stuff like story and progression, so I highly recommend you watch the interview for yourself if you're interested in 33 Immortals. So this is a good one. We got a new gameplay trailer for Off the Grid, an upcoming battle royale shooter being made by Neil Blomkamp. Now, if you don't know who that is, first of all, shame on you. This is the director of District 9, Chappie, Elysium, and that new Gran Turismo movie, but we don't talk about that one. Basically, he's an awesome sci-fi director, and I've been super interested in the making of this game because it sounds really different from your typical Fortnite clone. It looks to mix some PvE and PvP elements and also some emergent storytelling. Supposedly, they're trying to make it so that you'll be in a match and some sort of story moment could happen, which sounds really cool. I'm always looking for new and interesting ways to reinvent co-op or PvP, and this looks to be doing just that. Not every game needs to reinvent the wheel though. Case in point, we got a new look at Towerborn, which is an arcade beat 'em up with some light RPG elements. Out of all the interviews, I really recommend you guys check this one out. We learned a ton about this game. To sum it up though, this game is basically taking all the fun and approachability of Castle Crashers, but throwing in a bit of Monster Hunter-like combat in the mix. Your builds are all dictated by your huge weapons and everything is combo based. It's shaping up to be a really great co-op game from everything we've seen so far, especially if they can nail their ambitious plans for a seasonal model of new content. So this next game is essentially Outlast but with dinosaurs. We got a new gameplay teaser for Death's Ground, which is a co-op survival game coming to Steam. I love horror games, but I can't help but laugh watching this trailer. In typical Outlast fashion, I love how you can hide in a locker, and I love how the dinosaur is just chilling right outside of it. Does he like open the locker and eat you? That'd be awesome and hilarious to me. Hopefully we get the answer to that very soon. Moving on, Homeworld 3, the upcoming real-time strategy game, recently revealed a new roguelike co-op mode called War Games. This mode sees 3 players team up to take on various scenarios. Each player has control of their own carrier and can harvest resources, build their own units, and traverse space as they see fit. Each run will give you different objectives, and there's also these things called artifacts that are like your typical roguelike upgrades. For a co-op mode, this looks really unique, and it definitely put Homeworld 3 on my radar, so I say that's a pretty big win. Last couple previews here, we got a brand new look at Pass of Exiles 2, the upcoming Diablo-esque action RPG, which is launching onto early access sometime next year. This new preview showcased the Druid, Huntress, and Warrior classes. It's definitely looking a lot like Diablo 4, which isn't a bad thing in my book at least. We never played the first game, but we do know it's known for massive skill trees and an equally massive amount of content. After how much we love Diablo 4, maybe we need to keep a closer eye on this game going forward. Let's wrap this up by talking about the chunky gameplay preview we got for Soulframe. Soulframe is a new free-to-play open-world game coming from the team behind, you guessed it, Warframe. It got a meaty 30-minute gameplay demo, and man, this has got to be the best-looking free-to-play game I think I've ever seen. The demo showed off dungeons, magic, co-op gameplay, and all of it looked incredible. And you can even ride a giant wolf? Yeah, sign me up, I'm ready to make Soulframe the only game I play.
Time to start wrapping up with all of the new game announcements. I'll start with a couple that came from outside of Gamescom and then finish with the rest that did come from Gamescom. The Signal was announced by new developers Goosebite, and it's an alien planet survival game created in Unreal Engine 5, which means it's going to look pretty good. Their goal is to create a survival title more focused on creativity than combat, and you can play it with up to 16 players online. Sounds pretty neat to me. Want another co-op space adventure from a brand new developer? Here's Eon Rush, a co-op action RPG in development for PC. The staff of this new developer has spent time on tons of franchises like Far Cry, Watch Dogs, and Pokemon, so we have a little bit of experience to fall back on here. No release date of any kind, so just log this in the back of your mind or wishlist it on Steam if the little bit of gameplay we're seeing here looks interesting to you. The first announcement I want to cover from Gamescom is actually a PvEvP title called Dragonhold. Easiest way to break this down is an extraction title with third-person melee combat on the ground and Panzer Dragoon-style aerial combat in the sky. Trailer looks a little bit too ambitious, probably needs some more time in the oven. Luckily no release date yet, so wishlist this on Steam if this is your jam. Next up we have Streets of Rogue 2, and I don't really know where to begin with this trailer. So it's an immersive open world sandbox where you have gone rogue in the streets, that checks out, and you can pretty much do anything you want, a la, I don't know, GTA? I mean, that's what I got from the trailer. You tell me what you got, maybe it's different. Looks wacky and fun, and I know the original was much beloved by fans. If you're one of those, then be sure to wishlist this on Steam as it's got a ways to go with a 2024 PC release date. Probably the most hyped co-op trailer from Gamescom was the announcement of Little Nightmares 3, the newest entry in the highly acclaimed horror series. Now, I haven't played Little Nightmares before because I am that guy when it comes to horror games, but I will probably be checking this out with Gabe. I'm sure the choice to go 2-player co-op was carefully considered by this really good developer, and it will make it a front-runner for co-op game of the year in 2024. Another third game in the franchise that's also a cooperative-focused horror game was announced in Killing Floor 3. I'd show you the rest of this trailer, but it's pretty graphic and I'd like to stay monetized, so I'm just going to loop this little bit of gameplay that we got. This is the follow-up to the well-received Killing Floor 2, an online cooperative shooter from back in 2016. Not much more is known about it, other than that it's coming to next-gen consoles and PC, so for now, if you're into the series or the premise, wishlist it on Steam. As always, it's good to wishlist all of these titles on Steam. I know I'm a broken record, but it makes a huge difference. And we're finishing with a really interesting trailer in Farah the Sundred Tribes. This is a brand new monster hunting RPG with additional tribe management and village building mechanics. Gameplay looks fun, if maybe a little bit clunky early on here. Luckily, they have time to work that out between now and the release with just a vague 2024 stamp given at the end of the trailer. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it in the coming months.
And that wraps up our August monthly update. If you're a fan of what we do around here, please subscribe, share this with a friend, leave a comment down below. It all helps us out a ton. And if you want to go the extra mile, follow us on our socials and check out our merch line. Links to all of that down below. We got reviews for Remnant 2 and Trine 5 coming up real soon, and we're streaming Baldur's Gate 3 for the foreseeable future, so come hang out with us on a stream. Thanks for watching, we'll catch you next time on another episode of The Co-op Bros.